Hi, I'm Dr. Phyllis, and welcome back to the Joy Fueled Resilient Woman podcast. I, as always, I guess you all say, I say this every week, but it's true. I'm thinking about you and I see you. And I wanted to start with a story. It's it's an excerpt. I'm going to tweak it. I'm going to give you my own version. But it's based on a story that was shared in the book Having a Merry Heart in a Martha World by Joanna Weaver. And it's a book that I actually led a Bible study book club on several years ago for our women's ministry group at the church. And it is a book that has stuck with me over the years, but I wanted to start with this story because this is what was on my mind this morning as I was out walking um, one of our family dogs, and it talks about a man who God had asked to take a wagon of stones up a mountain, and along the journey the man, and I want you to change it to a woman, okay? And so this woman had a wagon of stones, her stones, and started her journey up this mountain. So along the way, she stopped in one city and or town, better to say a town, and someone she met was also talking about taking their stones up the mountain. And she said, "Well, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'll take your stone. Just put it in my wagon." She went to another town along the journey for a stop. And there again, she met someone and they talked about how they were going to go take their stone up the mountain, and she said, "No, you know what? I'll do it for you. Just put it in my wagon." So this went on several times. So by the time she got to the top of the mountain, she was just dog tired. She was tired. She was tired. She was just drained. She was depleted. And she cried out to the Lord and said, "God, why did you give me such a heavy burden to carry up this mountain?" And the Lord said, "I never asked you to carry everyone else's burden. I only asked you to carry your burden." And sis, I want to share that story with you. I want you to take a moment and think about it and how it might resonate with you as I enter this episode of talking about for episode 61, stop being the excuse. Empower others to carry their own weight. Now I'm going to say that again. Stop being the excuse. Empower others to carry their own weight. I know for myself, over the years, it became kind of a way that I coped with confrontation, certain situations, and then maybe also because I just felt responsible for everyone and everybody. Does that resonate with you? Have you ever felt that God has given you the gift? You are the one who's responsible. You're the one who knows what needs to be done, and you don't want others to feel badly. You try to shield people from from feeling bad, and you want them to feel empowered, so you step up and you're willing to be the excuse. For me, I used to do that. I would say, "Sorry, I'm sorry that happened. It's my fault." Because I felt, be it as a leader, be it in my frontline job, I felt the responsibility to say, "Okay, I'll carry the weight," because I felt I could. I felt God had created me with shoulders wide enough to carry the load, so I'll carry the responsibility. And I know you're the same way because you're also a resilient Christian woman who is wired to step up because you know God is so good, and you just take it on. You say it's, now the kids would say, "My bad," right? But you're the one who says, "Okay, it's my fault, no problem." And it's become a way for you also to just kind of try to expedite the situation and get it over with, facilitate the situation, and take the heaviness out of the air by just saying, "I'll just accept responsibility and keep it moving." Yet, for us as resilient women, we don't really, you don't really get over it. And if you're not careful, all of these stones, right? Every situation, you take up someone else's responsibility, you take on the fault, the you take on responsibility for the success or the failure of the situation at work, and you let people use you as the scapegoat. I've been there. Been there, done that. And you start to wear the role of the excuse, the role of the scapegoat as a badge of honor, and you confuse that with being resilient. But what it does is you don't get over it. The more of these stones, the feeling of responsibility, the feeling of being the excuse, it evolves into a feeling of guilt. And you've heard me talk about, because it's so integral to who we are as resilient women, if we're not careful, it becomes shame along with this guilt, this feeling of responsibility, and it plays out in your parental relationship. So, how you parent, or if you're a bonus parent, or you are responsible for mentoring someone in your family, you have a particular role in your family. It could play out in your romantic relationships. But I want to come back to parents for a moment, or you are a godparent, or you are an aunt that's, or a godmother or a grandmother, or you're involved with parenting or mentoring those younger than yourself. I had to come to a point, and it's an ongoing coachable moment for me every day, and parenting my adulting children, and they know I call them adulting because they're in their 20s. They're not faulting them. They're not totally out on their own. So as I tease them, when you're totally out on your own, you are an adult. But in the meantime, you're adulting. And they know that. We laugh about that. But in the midst of it, It's very easy as a mom or as a significant woman, older woman in the lives of the young people of your family to continually try to shield them from life's experiences because we know what can happen as a result of some decisions. So you try to shield them. If you're like me, again, I'm talking to you because I have been there and am there. And we try to shield them because we know what can happen if they make this decision or if they make that decision. And it can cause us a lot of mental and spiritual and physical stress because we are trying to we're as I said, we're trying to shield them. We're trying to get them to avoid some of the mistakes or the results of some of the decisions that we made at their age. And often in the midst of that, because we have allowed ourselves to be their excuse, right? Because often our kids will come to us and when we ask them, "Well, why did you make this decision?" Especially when they become adulting, because they don't realize that, yes, that maybe the way that we reacted when we were younger in our parenting journey, we're also growing and evolving. So, for example, something that I may have fussed about or maybe just, screamed about too or ruminated on. Some of it was because of what was going on in my own life, right? Stress at work or whatever. But the way I reacted then is not the way that I'm going to react now because I'm growing. I'm growing. I'm not the same person that I was back then. But for our children, they still see us back then. But also, it can be because it is easier in the adulting phase, and let's be real, even in the adult phase, because there's a whole lot of us adults walking around that look for others to use them as the excuse. It's very easy for our adult children, adulting children, our children in high school, our younger children in middle school. Let me just go there. Our children, okay? To use us as the excuse. And while when they're younger, that's okay, right? When we've told them as when they're dealing with peer pressure coming through elementary school, coming through middle school, or even if it helps them avoid some situations in high school, use me as the excuse. Tell them your mother said this or your mother won't let you do this. And that was okay. That was okay and appropriate because they need to have that excuse to help them until they grow to be able to say no for themselves. But as they are evolving into young adults, and we know that starts in high school, at the end of high school, that starts in college, or let's say beyond high school, whatever that is, if they start working right away, if they go to trade school, if they go to another educational institution, there's a point at which, just like Paul said in the Bible about when he became a man, that he put away childish things, we have to empower our adult children to stop using us as the excuse. We have to start telling ourselves to stop being the excuse. Because what happens is when we question a decision they make and they come back with, well, I made this decision or I didn't tell you this because I knew how you were going to react. And I'm going to tell you something, they're using you as an excuse. And there was a point at which I had to draw the line because I realized the more I allow my children to use me as the excuse, number one, it creates, it continually stokes that fire, it keeps that fire burning of guilt and shame that I feel. Because as a parent, you already feel responsible for what your children do, no matter what. I know for my parents, and especially my mom was the parent that I had the longest because she passed later. My dad passed years ago when my son was just a newborn, and that's 22 years ago. But my mom passed, as I've shared, in 2021. My brother and I were still her kids, and she felt responsible for what we do. And so if your parents or your significant adult in your life, your grandmother or whoever it was who raised you or poured into you, feels responsible for what you do into their 80s and their 90s and older, 70s and older, then it's no surprise that you are going to feel responsible for what your adult children's do for as long as you live. And with that in mind, you have to find a place where you do not allow them to continue to make you the excuse. Because what happens is there becomes a double standard where we will draw a line, we will set a boundary with others, but we allow our own children to continually cross that line where you they use us as their scapegoat, as their excuse. And it's not, well, there's gonna be some that maybe it's true that that word scapegoat means, scapegoat means that basically being used as someone's excuse, as the reason for everything and why everything is happening horrible in their life. Maybe for some you have to be harsh and break it down to them. But others, it's just become their mode of operation because we as parents have allowed them to continue to do that. And then what do we do as us resilient women? We just absorb it. We suck it up and we keep going. But again, you're just filling up with all of that feeling of guilt and shame and belief that it's your fault on the reason that they're making those decisions when they are considering themselves as adults, and you and I both know they're going to do what they're going to do, yet we allow them still to use us as the excuse when they make decisions that they were wrong. They were wrong. They shouldn't have made that decision, but you have to let them know, no, I'm not going to accept the role as your excuse. I don't agree with the decision you made. I get you. I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to let you bear the responsibility of that decision. I'm going to let you bear that responsibility. And I've had to tell my kids, you know, "Hey, nope, I'm not accepting that. Okay, we just gonna agree to disagree on that. That's you. I'm gonna let you take that responsibility. So I'm gonna take that stone out of my wagon and I'm gonna hand it back to you. And when I give that back to you to carry, I'm going to pray for you because it's their journey. It's my kid's journey, it's your kid's journey, and it's hard. But every day that we allow them to carry their own stone, their own responsibility for the decisions that they make, then it allows them to fully evolve into adults, and it frees up room in our wagon, in your wagon, in my wagon, so that we can replace it with some fun stuff, with some dreams, with some aspirations, or just being, right? So that's parenting. That's parenting and being the excuse. The same thing happens at work. But even before I get there, let me also include extended family. You can apply some of the same things I shared with our extended family. Could be your parents, it could be siblings, it could be other people in the family, it could be friends, that you need to stop being their excuse. You need to give them back their stones. Let them carry their stones. Let them carry their stones. They'll be okay. God has got them in his arms. It's hard, sis. It's hard to let go. It's hard. But believe me, it gets easier one stone at a time. And believe me, you will be so much happier when you can free up some space. So now let's move to work, okay? So the same thing happens with work. How many of you feel like you you're the one, the same mode of operation of accepting responsibility for other people's actions spills over into how you lead your team or how you navigate in the office? I had this happen. And I have to say, it had become not my leadership style in every setting, yet it definitely was there at work until I stopped doing that. I saw leadership as an extension of a mother role. And I took I mean, let me back up for a minute. As a leader, when you are appointed or hired into a leadership role, yes, there is a certain level, a large level of responsibility that, yes, you must bear as the leader. Yet, I want to also talk about how we navigate those above us, those who are supervising us, our leaders, right? And as I stated, when I look back over different leadership, I think such a better leader now than I was several years ago after I've gone through my own transformation. And but there was a time several years ago where I I tried to mother everyone, especially coming through, actually even before the COVID-19 pandemic, but then leading my departments through COVID, it was just such a crazy time, and it really exemplified, people showed themselves, you know? People showed some very interesting personalities, we'll just say that. But as a leader, I really saw leadership as a mother role. And with that being said, when it came to talking to leaders above me, it's almost like, I'm all into football. I love football. The best quarterbacks will will say, well, I won't, let me clarify that, because there's difference between performance and what they talk about in the media, but in the media conferences afterward. But I will say the professional answer for quarterbacks is to not throw anybody under the bus, not to blame somebody else, but to say, I need to play better, right? It's my fault. So often we will do that as leaders. If you're like me, we're like the mother. We mother everyone. And so instead of being able to articulate responsibility in the matter and giving at least some context, because you can accept responsibility by saying, I will accept the responsibility, and the responsibility of managing the situation and giving feedback to those that are involved, my team, so that our performance can be better. You can do that without saying it's my fault. Because what happens is when you are working in a leadership position and you continually take on the answer of, well, it's my fault, then again, you start to believe it, and those above you start to believe it. Or even if they know it's not true, they will use you as the excuse. And you'll continually what? I'm sucking it up. I'm resilient. I'll keep going. But it does a mind job on you, because then you start to believe it. And what do? You're putting more stones back in that wagon. And then when people turn on you and they say things that aren't true, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe it." Because those same people, they need to carry their own stones. They need to be accountable for the decisions that they made. And there are times when they need to step up, and they have to take responsibility for their own actions, because you're dealing with some adults. Okay? And a part of us, even if we are supervising younger people, is to help and empower them to take responsibility for their actions. It's not to shield them or mother them, or it's nothing wrong with being empathetic with people, those who we supervise, and give them some grace when it can and when it is appropriate. But you also, in those one-on-ones, you need to be real, and you need to maintain some perspective and have some boundary lines between what you are saying you're taking responsibility for, and holding those that played into what happened, hold them accountable, give them back their stone, give them the feedback, and let them take responsibility for themselves. And it made me think about my mom. I tell you, one of these days I am going to write a book, if not a blog or something, about all the wonderful sayings my mom would share from the South. But in one of her sayings was every tub has to sit on its own bottom. And that's what we're talking about, is that every tub has to sit on its own bottom. It can't sit on another tub. It has to be level. It has to carry its own weight. Now, don't ask me to give you where that originated from, but we knew what it meant. And that's what we're talking about, is you have to empower others to carry their own weight. You have to, sis, take out some of these stones that never did God mean for you to carry. And I think it also comes down to one of my key pillars of what I believe is necessary to transform your life, to be able to stop living on fumes and be able to replenish and refuel with joy as you you love big, you live to the fullest, and you learn to have fun in life, is you you have to give yourself permission. You have to give yourself permission to delegate responsibility and give people back their own responsibility. You have to. You have to. And the one of the other parts is to get to live your best life, which is living in fully in the purpose that God has birthed you, He's created you for, is trying to decrease the distractions and the detours and the weight of carrying other people's purposes and other people's priorities. And as we've talked about today, being other people's excuses. Because I'm going to tell you, I can tell you from experience that it is liberating. It's hard. It's hard, but it is liberating when you can give your kids, your family, your friends, your supervisors, your coworkers, those who you supervise, when you can learn to discern and delegate back responsibility and let them carry their own stones so that you can get where wants you to get to without depleting your energy stores, without depleting your mental health, without depleting your physical wellness and health. So this week, I want you, I like to give you one area I want you to focus on this week as your coach. I want you to really be intentional this week. I want you to look at how you're feeling. If you are feeling depleted, exhausted, like you're just running on fumes, like you are that woman who's trying to get to where God is telling you to get to, you're trying to make it through, you're living day to day, and your wagon is just full. I want you to look at the stones that are in your wagon. And I want you to take a moment. I don't want you distracted if you're driving. But even then, you can start kind of looking over life or take a moment as you're getting dressed in the morning. You're having that cup of coffee. I pray that you take a moment to have a good cup of coffee or tea or your smoothie or whatever it is, your sparkling water. It doesn't take that long during the day. Just take a moment and just say, I am going to start looking each day at what's being asked of me, what I'm taking on as my responsibility, who's using me as their scapegoat or excuse. And I want you to just open your ears, open your eyes, open your heart to that. And I want you to just critically look at, do I need to carry that in my wagon? Or do I need to step up and do or step into that hard conversation to say, you know what? No more. No more. No more. It's time. I'm going to let you carry that. I hear what you're saying. I get you, but I'm going to let you have that back. I'm going to let you have that back. You carry that. I'm not, nope, nope, no more. I love you, son. Love you, daughter. Got you. Yes. That may have been what happened in the past, but now you're an adult. You want to be seen as an adult. I'm just letting you know I'm growing and evolving too. So don't assume how I'm going to respond to something, but I'm not going to be your excuse anymore. And I'm going to let you experience the consequences of your decisions. I'm not wishing any ill on you, but I'm going to just let you handle that. And don't use me anymore as the excuse. You take responsibility for your decisions because, I'm done with that. And at work, I want you to keep your ears and eyes out. If someone didn't finish their work, let them finish their work. As long as it's not, take care of the life-threatening or, emergencies, but call them on it and let them know that they need to take care of their work. You don't wanna write them up, but maybe you have to write them up and maybe you won't win the popularity contest. But then you're also empowering them to step up. Because there's a whole lot of adults too that want someone else to be their excuse. And because they know that person will deal with it, they run out the door and they're gone. But you're still there doing their work because in your mind, you know how it was when you were coming along. You know how it was when you had this and that. And you know it needs to be done because your leader's telling you it has to be done. Hold the person you supervise accountable. And if they don't do what they need to do, you might just have to write them up. It's not comfortable. It's not easy, but your life is important. Your time is important. Your family is important. Your mental health is important. Your spiritual health is important. Your physical health is important and your wellness and being able to enjoy your life is important. So this week, I've given you your homework. So for this week, take a look at your wagon and see how many stones belong to you and how many stones belong to somebody else. And do your best to hand those stones back. You will lighten your load, have more capacity to invest in your own dreams, your own joy, your own mental space so that you can dream and plan for the future, or just be quiet and enjoy life. I love you, and I look forward to seeing you next week. If this episode was helpful to you, I hope you will share it. Share it with another resilient Christian woman who needs to be a part of our community. If you're watching me, subscribe. If you're listening to me, follow. I greatly appreciate it. And share. Let's grow this community of joy-fueled, resilient women together. Love you. See you next time. Bye now.